Well, everybody, thank you for joining us today, especially Miss Brittany Caito. My name's Courtney Cox. I'm National Partner Manager out of VIA, but the woman of the hour are one of our board members from the Alliance of Channel Women, and a dear friend of mine is Brittany Caito. And I'll give you a second to introduce yourself, and then we'll talk about why we're meeting today.
Yeah, thanks, Court. Hi, everyone. I'm Brittany Caito. I'm the Senior National Partner Manager at Nextiva. I am so thrilled to be here today. These are the meetings that I look forward to, honestly. I mean, when you can meet with friends, it's kind of what Channel and ACW and what it's all about. So happy to be here.
Yes. And the reason that I'm getting to interview you today is about balancing mom life and work life. And so, and I guess no other life, because those two things definitely take up 100% of your time. And so really excited to get to ask you a few questions. And I mean, very selfishly get to pick your brain, since I'm going to have my first little man arriving here in 3 months. And I'm so lucky that you're one of his aunties. And so I'm hoping to also just, gain a lot of knowledge from this conversation. So really, I want to give you the floor for a second just to tell us about your involvement in ACW and being a board member, and then really what you do for work. And then we'll get into the really important stuff with your family.
Yeah. So I've always historically been a member of ACW, and I joined when I first got involved in Channel, and that was 14-ish years ago. And I always joined like ACW meetings, but kept to being a member or like participated in a committee sometimes. And then I realized after so many years, I wanted a seat at the table. And so I joined the board. I'm going into my 3rd year on the board. And I'm excited. There's just so much that's changed, and there's just different generations that have come into ACW and grown the organization. And we have new board members coming on board that they're about to be announced soon too. So it's such a great organization. I love being on there. There's a lot of work to be done still for women in technology and women in channel. And I'm so happy to be a part of that. In addition to ACW, of course, being in this national role at Nextiva has been great. I've been here for almost 2 years now too. We have an awesome team here, but I mean, yes, work-life balance. I mean, I think the key is that there is no balance. It's so hard. It's so hard sometimes to figure that out, because my most important role and my most important job, and the most challenging, is being a mom. And I have a 4-year-old daughter, Amelia, and an almost 2-year-old son, Luke. And I tell you, that is definitely my favorite role to date has been being a mom.
Well, you're pretty dang good at all of the roles that you do. So yeah, I look up to you so much because of how much you do for others and how much you give of yourself to everyone. And so, you're a great, amazing woman in our community for all of us to learn from, to, give back to each other, make sure that we're still taking time for our personal lives though. And so tell us a little bit more about your family and what y'all like to do. Like, tell me what a normal day in the life looks like. Although I'm sure none of them are normal.
No. And I mean, none of them are the same either.
Yeah.
They change. I am happily married. My husband, Anthony, and I have been married going on 6 years. And we're outdoor people. Like, even when it's freezing right now in Raleigh, and we will still be like, we'll bundle up and we'll be outside, and we like walking, and we have a dog, Finn, that we just love to take around. And, so most of the time we are outdoors and spending time together. I think it can be challenging as a working parent, because you're sending your kids to school. In my case, one of them is in preschool, the other one's in daycare, and they're there all day. Like, we're not working part-time hours here. So When it's after hours or the weekends, my focus is on them. And we like to be together. We like to adventure around Raleigh, and we spend as much time as we can together.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's awesome that y'all spend so much outdoors time together, because we know that these days it's so hard with the little ones trying to enjoy nature and things other than a screen. And so I love that y'all spend that time as a family, because that's extremely special and just time that you can't ever get back. And so why waste it staring at a screen? That's a lesson that I will be taking from you, even though I'm not the most outdoorsy person. I'm going to try my hardest, because, with a little boy, I'm sure I'm going to have to be a little outdoorsy. Yeah.
Sports. I know.
Yeah. So do you have any advice for how you balance all of those things? Do you spend time like making to-do lists, or, how do you stay organized with all of it?
Yeah. I want to be a to-do list person, like, because I do. I like the idea of like writing things down, checking them off. Like, that is cool. However, I don't have time to even write the to-do list. So, I'm like one of those that like lives by calendar. Like, I will put reminders in my calendars. It's because we use it so much for work stuff that I also use it for my personal life, and it kind of keeps like both of them organized. So I'm a believer in shared calendars. I recently bought this calendar, like, that's just like a week calendar for my fridge. And that's like, everybody can see it. We know what's happening this week. My husband and I, like, we both travel. So we also like make sure we're plugging in like who's out of town, who's solo parenting that week. So I try to stay as organized as possible, but no, I don't have like a bunch of to-do lists everywhere. It's mostly, shared calendars, and open communication. But yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's school stuff going on. There's daycare stuff going on. When there's holidays and school parties happening, in addition to what you have going on with work every single day too. I find it easy to live in like one space, and that's a calendar for me. I think it's good to prioritize. I mean, there are certain things that are just going to get bumped off the list, and that's not necessarily always work, by the way. Like, I mean, I definitely, there are times that I just have to put away the phone, put away email, focus on just what's in front of me. And usually that is my family. And then there are times that, like, when I'm in my work zone, that is my zone to be focused and getting the job done too. So, I'm definitely not a live to work person. I'm a work to live. But there's priorities in both. And so there's this balance in motherhood, that you have to juggle that. So,
yeah. Absolutely. Well, that makes me feel better, because my to-do list actually just says make a to-do list. So that makes me feel better. Usually this time of year, I'm buying a planner, and then I get it at the end of the year and I'm like, oh, I never wrote anything down. Living by our calendars on our computers is definitely the way of life. And it keeps me organized as well. So obviously you mentioned that you travel for work. Anthony travels for work, and I think you're solo parenting this week, right? How do you make it through that? That is tough, and it's something that honestly, like, I'm concerned about that, because that's part of my role, and it's something that sometimes keeps me up at night right now, just thinking about how do I balance this in the future. So tell me a little bit about how travel, and then like making sure that you're at the right things. And being able to say no, and saying, that someone else needs to be able to attend this. So talk me through that.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I've learned like the art of being kind to yourself, like giving yourself grace. It's so easy, and I feel like it's even easier for women to start comparing yourself, and it's a practice. I mean, it's something I still work on too. But giving yourself some grace. Like, this week is chaos for me. It's not pretty in the morning. We're all running around. The other day, I seriously had 2 different color shoes on my feet. Like, I mean, it's just, that's what's happening in my world right now. And you know what? I embrace it. Like, it's just, you embrace the chaos. But you be nice to yourself because you're doing the best you can. And sometimes it's just not all glamorous and it's not all, Instagram perfect. It's just life. It's motherhood.
So true.
And sometimes it's not so glamorous. So there are like more chaotic weeks than others. But yeah, I think too with travel, I mean, my husband and I have a rule, like whoever puts it in the calendar first gets it. So we're never traveling on the same weeks. So there are times that I've had to say no to work trips because Anthony had a conference that he knew about more in advance than I did for mine. So I've had to decline a work trip. Now, I'm not saying that would happen for every work trip. Like, I mean, we try to stay in advance as we can to avoid that, but sometimes they just don't align. And I've had to say no. And I've also learned that it's also okay to say no. There are other people. I mean, like, I'd like to say I can do, all the things and it has to be me that goes, but that's not true. Like, you trust your team around you and you say no if you can't do it, or you raise your hand and say, hey, I need a little help. Like, I can only be gone for 2 days, not the entire week. I need somebody to cover here or there. So I think that is also kind of like leads into boundaries a little bit too. Because I think you have to, take care of yourself and you don't want to overwhelm yourself, and it's okay to say no.
That's so true.
I'm
proud of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a tough lesson to learn, being able to say no. And
Brilliant.
The world keeps turning is the crazy part. Every time that someone says no, it keeps going and it'll be okay. Yeah, absolutely. So you've been in the channel 14 years. Over that time, do you think that the channel has become a lot friendlier for women and for us having, other responsibilities outside of the workplace? Because I think in the past there was always a stigma around technology in general, that it was very male dominated. I think the channel is very special and it's a different place, and we have a lot of supporters in what we do. And so what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I think we have so much support, and maybe because I've been in channel for so long, I feel that I've seen it grow too. I mean, I've seen it because when I started at ACW as a member to now being a board member, I mean, I've also seen it grow so much with female leadership. So I think we're headed in the right direction. I think the COVID era that we all experienced normalized a lot of personal things for people, whether it was family or dogs in the background or other things. Like our life things were made a little bit more public, maybe more than what people wanted. But I liked it. I liked it because I think it humanized a lot of us. So I think that coupled with just, growth in our industry, I think has been great. I think there's still more to come. I mean, I think the area of improvement, especially for women, is when you kind of talk through maternity leave. Not necessarily in our industry or channel. I mean, just in general, in our country, I think it's tough. It's tough for a mom right now to, after 8 to 12 weeks to then go right back into work. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, that is hard. Physically. I mean, you've grown this human and then, you're expected to just dive right back in. And I don't know that that's supernatural for anyone. So
no,
that to me needs some improvement. And the more we talk about it, the more it gets brought up. So I like talking about it. And some companies have figured it out and they've done a great job. I was with one. I mean, I had my daughter and I was working at Comcast, and their maternity leave policy was amazing and so supportive. And I also had a great team there to support me too. But I mean, just the company policy in general was fantastic. So I think, I mean, obviously it's by company, but I think that's something in general that more moms should talk about, bring up.
It's so true. And it's something that's also a stay awake at night thing. Just thinking about 6 weeks and trying to be a human and come back to work, not knowing, going into motherhood for the first time, especially just having no clue how life's going to change. And so it's definitely a topic that I think more people should talk about. There's a lot of things that a lot of people talk about these days that we all want to make change. And I think that that's something that especially because most of the companies that we're at, the C-suite is still very heavily male. And so the more women in those senior leadership positions, and even then positions like ours where we're not in those senior leadership roles, but we have a voice. And so speaking up, I think, is very important, and having the right people hear us. So I appreciate you for bringing that up.
Always.
So let me ask you one last question, because I know that for your birthday, you treated yourself last week, or you got treated and got to have a massage and a facial. But, you are so busy doing everything for everyone else. When and how do you take time to take care of you? How do you self-care?
Yeah, that's so hard. And that should not be hard because it's so fun.
It's true.
But it's hard to find the time. It's hard as moms and women to put yourself first. I mean, that's just one of our other lessons that we have to keep learning. And I'm still learning it, but I have done a better job, I think, within this last year of taking care of myself. And some of that is focused on health. And while I had such an amazing birthday and I did treat myself, and that was wonderful, but also finding time for exercise and focus healthy eating habits and making yourself feel good is also self-care. And we should all be doing that too. So I'm a firm believer in self-care, taking care of yourself, treating yourself. We do a lot. We wear so many hats, and as moms, we take on even more than that. So I'm a believer in it, but it takes a little practice, but worth it in the end. I mean, gosh, you feel amazing afterwards, and sometimes it just recenters your focus. You're even kind of better at home too, better in work too. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think when I think about self-care, I'm like, what is this big extravagant day that I'm going to go and spend $500 at Marshall's and as simple as eating vegetables for lunch. That's self-care because we're taking care of ourselves for the people around us. And it always ends up in your mind being, why is it better for everyone else that I take care of me? That's the female mindset, but those little things add up to really big changes, and making sure that you're able to be the best you for yourself, and for everything that you have going on in your life. So I think that's important to remember, that it can be as simple as eating a vegetable. I have to remind myself of that.
I'm not going to hate on French fries though either. Those also bring me joy. So.
Potatoes are a vegetable, so we're going to just go with that.
Chocolate is still okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Cocoa comes from a plant. It is actually all a fruit or a vegetable. Absolutely. Well, I so appreciate you taking this time to, spend a little time talking about you, all of the different hats that you wear, and just, encouraging women to take care of themselves and to know that they've got this amazing community around them. And I'm thankful that you're one of the leaders of that community, and that I get to know you and be your friend. So I'm super proud of you. I know the whole ACW community is proud to have you. And so y'all, if you don't know Brittany, this is your chance. You got to get to know Brittany better, because she is truly one of the best.
Oh, thanks, Court. Back at you.
Oh, well, we will end it on that high note. And thank you to anyone who spent a little bit of time with us today.
Thank you.
All righty.